this may be a God moment, but I don't know what came over me, but I just sort of said to him, look, not once have I ever preached to you. Not once have I told you about God. Not once have I told you about Jesus. Not once have I told you to change your lifestyle. But I've had to sit here every Monday and listen to you preach to me about how many women that you scored on the weekend, how much alcohol you consumed, and how much drugs you took. So don't you start having a shot at me. And not once have I ever told you not to stop telling those stories.
Wow.
And he goes, no, fair enough. And we were best mates.
Welcome to the yesHEis podcast, where we talk about sharing your faith with confidence so that you can play your part in helping the world know Jesus.
Well, welcome to the yesHEis podcast. We're here for another day, another pod. I'm here with Mark.
What's happening?
And Mark's just got to clear his voice. So I'll just go on to introduce Mike Winnington, who is our illustrious guest today.
Yeah,
G'day, Mike.
Thank you.
Yes,
Great
Mark.
to be
Come
here.
on.
Hey?
What a pleasure.
You're with us now, Mark?
Yeah, sorry. I don't know what
Great.
happened.
Yeah, you just had a
Bit of phlegm.
bit of phlegm. That's
Yeah.
okay. That's all right. You didn't do your warm-ups this morning.
I didn't do my warm-ups.
warm-ups.
Me. I'm
That's
better
all right.
now.
Yep,
Yeah.
great.
Good.
Well, yeah, we're here with Mike, and Mike is a local pastor. He's a dad. What else do you do, Mike? You're a teacher at a Bible college.
Yeah.
Wow.
Teach Bible college. I run all the pastoral care for the church that I'm a part of. Look after that. Run all the courses, things like that. I have a family, as you said, three kids. My wife, Odette, she's national head of HR for a company that, so she travels around all
Is
over.
she French?
Hey?
Is she French?
No, but her name is.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I thought it sounded French.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, she doesn't really like a name because it means homemaker. So,
right.
so
Okay.
like, you know.
So she's like, screw it,
I
I'm
can
going to
get
head
out.
up HR.
Well, that was gonna be my
for a
next-
massive company.
That's going to be my next question, though, because
dishes and stuff.
having a wife who's a HR manager must be an interesting, is
Yeah,
it
she
like,
manages us really well.
Does she? Yeah, right.
or is it the
Well,
opposite, like a plumber has leaky pipes? in his own house? It's not
No.
that.
She manages us very well.
Let's go into their marriage.
yeah.
I feel like this is
Geez,
the
we're going
time
deep
and place. You know what I mean? You're in pastoral care. You're used to it.
Yeah.
How's
No,
your
it's not a marriage podcast, but it is an evangelism podcast.
All right, mate.
Yeah.
I was just trying to have a laugh.
No, I was trying to have a segue. I wasn't calling you out.
All right. Sorry.
No, but that's the reason we got Mike in, is because you are in church ministry, you're a pastor, but you've had like a history of being in trades and a whole bunch of fun experiences that we're going to chat about today, I think. So,
What kind of trades?
So scaffolding is the main trade, and I grew up sheep farming in New Zealand. So
you're a Kiwi. Yeah. Actually, I've got a great. Have you heard the joke about the Kiwi space program?
No.
You haven't? I swear you would have heard this. What's the reason that the Kiwis never got into space?
I don't know.
They ran out of scaffolding.
Nah,
I swear. I thought.
never heard it.
I feel like that the British part of me doesn't get this. Why is that funny?
Well, apparently in Australia, there's a lot of Kiwi scaffolding.
Yeah, that's correct.
Is that
Okay.
Like-
And I'm the typical Kiwi. Like I grew up sheep farming, so
Yeah.
I've got
Yeah.
that background.
So sheep and scaffolding is a Kiwi thing.
It's a Kiwi
Must-
thing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So,
I thought I'd get more laughs from that, but I think
might
it was good for you to unpack that, just even for our international listeners who probably didn't laugh either.
Yeah. Well, we can cut it.
Anyway, it's a funny joke because imagine just Kiwis being like, "Oh, we could put enough scaffolding together to get to the moon."
Yeah. Now you're
to
explaining the
space.
joke.
yeah.
Anyway, so if you
Okay.
want to laugh now, now's the time.
Yeah. You're done. Yeah.
Right, so grew up on a sheep farm.
Yeah. High country, New Zealand. Moved to Australia. Dad was a minister, local minister. Moved to Australia. He became a Bible college lecturer over here for a large church.
Yeah.
And
you were a Christian, like sort of.
No,
growing up or
no.
no?
Well, grew up in a Christian home.
Yeah.
My grandparents were missionaries. My parents were pastors. I grew up in the Christian home, so church every Sunday. and that, but not until late teens.
What happened?
Well, first of all, I remember looking at a picture of Jesus in my grandmother's Bible, and thinking, I hear these stories about him being this great shepherd, and in my grandma's Bible, I actually thought he could have been my girlfriend if he didn't have the beard. The blonde hair, blue eyes type thing, and I'm thinking that's no shepherd.
So messed up.
That's no shepherd. I know what a shepherd looks like. Growing up.
Because you were a sheep farmer.
Yeah. And
wow,
that's not a shepherd.
Not a shepherd.
I've worked in a shearing shed, and
shepherds don't look like that.
No. And
that's so funny.
And so that was a bit of a stumbling block. But I was like, didn't really want to follow.
Didn't seem like someone to follow.
No.
Yeah.
It's from my context, and teenage years, you just and farming and hunting and different things like that. It's more fun doing that than going to Bible
Sitting
school.
in church
He's so manly. So manly. I feel like Mike's the manliest guest we've ever had.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Typically.
Yeah.
Sheep farmer, scaffolder,
hunter.
and hunter.
Yeah.
Should we redo the? I feel like we need to redo the intro.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Today we have Mike Winnington.
Yeah.
Sheep farmer, hunter, scaffolder,
father. Yeah.
So,
wow.
but so that was upbringing. I went to church every Sunday. Heard the stories.
So you knew about Jesus.
Knew about Jesus, and certainly the Jesus the stories that I'd hear, I quite liked. But like having the imagery or the older paintings or seeing, that was a stumbling block. And then seeing, my goal in life was to be a sheep farmer. Like I was the typical Kiwi kid, read Foot Rot Flats and wanted to be a sheep farmer. And there was nothing, more to that. And then probably seeing mum and dad getting hurt through the church in a sense. Just through circumstances, just, people and just what they would carry. And just observing that, I thought there's no way that I want to do that. So that was pretty influential on my life. So I wasn't overly naughty, just the typical teenage kid.
So what then changed? Like,
I always went to church, like even in my late teens, just out of respect for mum and dad. Just every Sunday still went to church, but it was out of a respect for them, not because I was enjoying it or wanted to be there. I think that was part of the cultural upbringing of small country town, church on Sunday, and respect for your elders almost, like grandparents and within where we grew, everyone supported. Your grandparents or like the older generations were always looked up to.
Right.
So I'd always held that pretty, family was important. So I'd never, and when I came to Australia, I was 16. I was about to leave school. So, and I had apprenticeship as a high country shepherd in the Southern Alps.
Oh, wow.
And through circumstances, farming had bottomed right out in New Zealand, and a couple of Dad's friends had gone out in the back paddock and put a gun to the and just ended it all. They couldn't handle the pressure of finances, and Dad had to do those funerals. And being in a small country town, everybody knowing everyone, I think Dad got a bit of a fright in the sense that my boys have got no future.
Wow.
So he got an opportunity over here in Australia, and
So moved the family over to Australia.
Moved the whole family over. Dad said I could stay because I had this apprenticeship, but Mum was like, no way. So probably, so from 16 for a couple of years, probably about 3 years, I really held that against my parents because in New Zealand at the time you got your car license at 15, open car license.
Wow.
I had my gun license.
So you had a gun and a car at 15.
Yeah. And
That's horrific.
it's different. I think it's different now, but
It's awesome.
New Zealand,
But it's a
different place. It's
wow.
awesome.
and so we moved to Brisbane here in Australia, and
Right.
I'd never seen a city so big, and so all of a sudden, I was leaving school. Now I had to go back to school because I didn't have a job. I had to surrender like the car license. I couldn't drive over here.
No way.
And I wasn't allowed to have a gun license until
Everything was taken away.
everything was taken away from me.
My gun, my car. Yeah.
So everything was taken away, and so I thought, that was pretty tough. Like just growing up, like my whole identity,
that's huge.
what I thought I'd be doing, what I
And at this point, you're still in part of the church world, church family. Your tradition is Christianity.
Yeah.
But you suddenly moved to a big city out of country, New Zealand. You had your life planned out. You had your
as a 15-year-old does.
Yeah, but we do, right?
Yeah.
And you could drive. You had the freedom. You had a gun license, like that whole thing, and you knew where you wanted to go and what you wanted to do, and it was mapped out for you. There were open doors everywhere. Suddenly, you up sticks and moved to Brisbane. What happened at 16 for a couple of years? That was obviously you were hating it. What then happened for you to put your trust in Jesus?
Yeah. So, so as I said, really struggled through that period. Obviously, still going to church. I still respected but probably wasn't doing well at school. Wasn't doing well here. And one day I was in Mansfield, suburb in Brisbane. We're at a church down there, and the pastor of that church said, there's one person here today that the Lord's spoken to me about. They need to give their heart to the Lord.
Yeah.
And I actually thought, well, I hope that person hurries up because I want to go. I've done my hour and a half here. So that person, and it was a church where the altar calls could go for a long time. So I hadn't prayed for a while, but through that period, I was starting to pray for that person to give their hearts to the Lord so I could leave. They used to put like the deacons or elders on the doors so the young kids couldn't escape during the altar call times. I remember
you didn't have your gun. So
I didn't have a gun, and my car wasn't parked out in the drive.
Go.
But I was sitting with a friend of mine, and he'd made the altar call going on for a while. No one had gone forward. And I remember just saying to my friend at the time, "Oh, I think I'm going," and he says, "You can't. The elders are on the door." And I'm like, "No, I think I'm going." At some point, I obviously walked to the front, but I don't remember anything that took place from saying, "I think I'm going," to my friend, to the pastor actually saying. And I'm standing out the front, and the pastor saying, "Oh, is it you, Mike?" And I turned around in shock, thinking, "Oh, I can't walk back to my seat because that's embarrassing." Yeah. And in that moment, he prayed for me, and I just something had changed. Like I had, so don't get me wrong, like growing up, I'd been in church, I'd seen how altar calls are done. My dad had done plenty of altar calls. I'd put my hand up plenty of times to receive Jesus if Dad was struggling in his altar call just to help him out. Like, "Oh yeah, Dad, you need a hand," but it never.
That's great. That's the kind of stuff, if this was a mega church, that'd be in the press the next day. They're frauds. You know what I mean? Yeah. Wow.
So I but nothing had really sort of sat in me. And then I remember someone giving me a Bible afterwards and taking it home. And I'd grown up in church my whole life and realised I don't know where to start. Like, I don't even know how to read the Bible. I've heard the stories, but I don't know where they are.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the Bible. And I just opened up, did the whole open it up, we'll see what happens, and read the scripture in John, you did not choose me, but I chose you. And that was the first scripture I'd ever read.
Yeah, wow.
And that was quite impactful for me.
Yeah.
Really, I've always looked back at that moment as, it was the 30th of 6th, 1991, 10:46 a.m. I remember it like yesterday, like it was that radically changed.
Yeah, wow.
From where I was probably heading.
Wow.
So you're not sure what made you walk to the front?
I have no idea. Obviously, my legs, but
my legs.
Pastor prays for you get a Bible, but then Jesus meets you through
that
randomly opening up the
how
Bible.
Good's that? You didn't choose me, I chose you.
And that verse just speaks to that scenario, then, doesn't it? Of just like,
yeah.
I love that. That's a beautiful story.
So even now, like when I always said I'd never go into ministry, I'd never go work in a church, I'd never do all of that. And I remember, say, years later, just in a small group, just sharing a testimony of my life, and then talking about the farm, talking about all the, the things of the farm. This random old guy came up to me, and all I remember of this guy, I've never seen him before, but he was just so kind. Like, he just seemed like the kindest man. And then he just said, "Hey, I don't normally do anything like this, but can I just share with you what the Lord's put on my heart for you?" And he said, "You talk, your testimony about farming and wanting to be a farmer, and so he said, when you talked of, sheep, I feel like God saw people when you talked of ploughing paddocks, God saw you preparing hearts. When you talked about the farm that you grew up on, God saw a church. When you,
oh my gosh,
when you talked about, I went right into even drenching the sheep. Like when you talked about drenching the sheep, God saw you giving spiritual nourishment, and so." He just said to me these words that even right from a young age, you always wanted to be a shepherd, and God wanted you to be a shepherd. You thought it would be of sheep, but God thought it would be of people.
That's amazing. When was that then? How old were you then?
I was 30 then, so that had been probably 12 years after I'd given my heart to the Lord. And so just even moments like that through my whole life, like stories of God preparing or God using all that, and then that metaphor of the shepherd of always wanting to be that, and that's how now I guess what I'm doing. What an
amazing word!
That's
so that
awesome.
guy, does he know?
I've never seen him again. I've never seen him, met him up until that point.
Yeah,
and I've never seen him again. Like,
are you sure he still exists?
I don't know. Like,
do you know?
It's almost like, I've never.
I turned around to get a coffee and he was gone.
I don't know.
That's mad.
I should try and track him down because Mark has a cool
100%.
Story of wasn't it your youth pastor?
Yeah, yeah. Well, not even. He wasn't even my youth pastor. Which story? I've got loads of good stories.
The one where like you're a bit of a ratty kid.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you got back in contact with your previous youth pastor or youth
the
leader.
Anglican minister at the church that I sometimes went to.
Yeah. And you were like, hey, here I am, like I'm
in ministry.
I'm in ministry. I love Jesus and I'm following. And it blew his mind.
Yeah. He was like, he just assumed that I was,
peddling
wayward.
drugs.
Yeah. And Anyway, but I just love the idea of maybe that man who gave a word, probably went away, like we often do when we try and encourage someone in the Lord, whether it's a believer or an unbeliever. got a funny story. And you walk away thinking like, oh, that fell on deaf ears because he's not crying, or he's not just fallen on his knees in humble repentance. You know, he's just kind of gone politely, thank you. That probably meant nothing. However, completely altered the course of your life.
Yeah.
If he knew that you're oversee pastoral care, and you're a minister, you're a Bible college lecturer.
Yeah.
Like, how amazing would it be for him to hear that?
Oh, so good.
I love that. I was on in Byron Bay this last week. I was on holiday with the family, and my wife on the first night rolled her ankle. We're gonna go and get pizza. Just stepped off the curb, and like fully rolled her ankle. Lay on the ground. People are walking past just assuming she's drunk. Do you know what I mean? With their kids. The kids are crying. They're like, Bobby, what's wrong with Bobby? Right? Yeah, Byron Bay. Anyway, I had to go to Woolies to get just this bag of ice. And as I had to ask this girl, she's probably early 20s, she had green hair, where the ice was. And as I was walking out, I felt Holy Spirit say, go. You know, I'm like, oh no, she's from Byron. Yeah. You know, she'll call me a bigot. And I just went back to her and just gave her this word. And the look she gave me, she was like, thanks. Nothing. It's like, God, she didn't even cry. You know what I mean? But
fast forward 20 years.
Who knows?
There you go. She might be head of pastoral ministry. No. That is an amazing story. That's amazing.
So obviously it took a long time. Like I still was never, I wasn't interested in ministry.
Even after that?
After that, yes, for sure. But up until like when I got saved, when the Lord came in, like I still had these. I don't want to go there.
Why not? Oh, because of what you saw with your mum and dad.
Just just everything that they'd put in, and just some of the disappointments they probably had, and just witnessing that, seeing that, I just thought nah. And then
so is that when you got into like trades, scaffolding?
Yeah.
So can we drill into that a little bit of like, because new Christian in an environment that's probably not that kind of churchy.
No.
How did that all go?
Yeah. So a couple of years after that, I actually did Bible college in between.
Oh, right.
In between actually going on to the trade sector. Yep. So I met my wife. She was at Bible college. And I saw a lot of again, and some of those students really at Bible college sort of reinforced why I don't want to go to ministry. I really don't like these people.
You look like my girlfriend as well.
She was at my Bible college with my brother, and anyway, we met, and I'd say things like, the only reason you're at Bible college is you obviously need help with your relationship with God, which didn't really go down very well. And I was just in a average job. Like I was asked to leave school, never finished school, another story there. But asked to leave school. No, I wasn't overly naughty. I was quite dumb. Like I was actually, that's why I was asked to leave. They basically said that you're not gonna pass school, so there's no point you being here.
Oh wow,
that's harsh.
That's really encouraging.
Flipping heck.
So
well done, education system.
Wow. And I was quite a stutterer. I wasn't. They never have to do oral presentations at school or anything like that. So I just figured that is I'll take that teacher's advice and find a job that I don't really have to speak to people about. I don't have to. I can just do my thing. So that's where I sort of was doing a job, bit of a dead end job, having a bad day, and came home one day and just said to my wife at the time, I think I'll go to Bible college. And then I realised, what did I say that for? And she ran upstairs. We were doing the dishes. She ran upstairs, and she'd already had my forms filled out for me. She'd been believing that, because she had a word someone given her. She'd marry a pastor, or she'd always wanted someone to be in ministry.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like the so opposite.
Wow.
And so then
This is so mad. Like, I love how he's underplaying this. Like, you're saying it's so, you're telling the story so humbly, like beautiful, like genuinely, really humbly. But it is so evident that God fully marks people and chooses them, whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
I just find that amazing. So, like, I just mean to encourage everyone, the fact that, like, your wife really felt like she was going to marry a minister.
Yeah.
He turned out to not be, because he was a tradie, but he turned out to be a minister.
Yeah.
It was just a matter of time, right?
Yeah.
Because it's same story for me. My wife was told multiple times and had the desire in her heart to marry a minister. I was the same. When we met and got married, couldn't have been less interested in being in full-time ministry for similar reasons to you. But then it just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I
just love that.
That's so good.
She's amazing. Like, really, like, she'd pray for me all the time. And probably with my wife, she was probably the first person that actually I felt like really believed in me.
Wow.
And even though I was just not having a bar of. I mean, I had my own faith. I had my experience. Anyway, I went to Bible college, and again, the 2 years I spent there reinforced why I really don't want to go into ministry. Wow. I hated every moment of it. But God was kind in that time. And then we'd moved up here to the Sunshine Coast after Bible college and needed a job, so I went to the only other thing a Kiwi can do, and that's scaffolding. And then
put your spacesuit on.
Yeah. Spacesuit.
Kiwi Space Program membership card.
And then so got a job as a scaffolder.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, didn't think that ministry would ever be where I was heading, and until I got into the workspace, and I don't know how my boss at the time found out, but he found out that I was a Christian, and I got called into the office one afternoon after work, and I'd sort of been, I think I'd been there about 4-5 months working, and I get called into the office, and all I hear is this booming voice, "Is that Winnington?" I was like, yeah, I'm here, thinking, gosh, what's wrong with you? And then he said to me, "I hear you're a God botherer." And I sort of didn't know what to say. I was like, well, yeah, I bother him every now and then. I don't know.
Has he told you?
What's going on? I didn't know what's going on. And he said, if I'd known that, then I would have never employed you.
Oh, my God.
But I've rung every leading hand that you've worked for in the last couple of months, and you're their first pick on the team. So you've got your job for this week. And that was it.
What do you mean?
So
you first pick on the team.
So we had different crews that we would go to. So, and we were assigned. So obviously they liked me. I worked. I worked hard. And so he'd rung all the leading hands that I'd worked for. So we're the leading hand of the team, and to see how I was at work.
Oh, right.
I think he was looking
after he found out you're a Christian.
Yeah, so he was looking for an angle to get rid of me.
No way.
And then he basically just said, "You've got your job for this week."
Oh my gosh!
And then
implying that you don't have a job next week
because I'm a Christian. So if I don't
so he wished he hadn't employed you because he found out you were a Christian, and then through gritted teeth he let you keep your job for another week because everyone that you'd worked for said you were great. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if they said I was great, but they liked.
That's what they're implying.
Yeah, implying. Yeah. But and so I just left there thinking, heck, I better work hard this week. And I just determined at that moment I'm going to be this guy's hardest worker. I'm not. Wow. But he sent a text out to 30 other scaffolders and told them that I was a Christian. And he said that they all have his permission to give me hell. So
that is
we
mad.
Call that workplace bullying?
Yeah, but that's what I was thinking is anyone nowadays would have been like, workplace bullying, persecution, or whatever, you were like, I'm going to work the hardest out of any one of these people. I just think that is
I needed the job.
But that's it. That is a Sermon on the Mount response there.
That was it. And so the boys, they certainly gave me hell.
They gave you hell.
Oh, absolutely. Like, so one guy came up to me, and I hadn't worked for him for a couple of weeks, and we're on a job site, high rise, and he just came up to me like yelling. He goes, "You didn't tell me you're a Christian. I don't want you to go and preach around here," And he was right in my grill, like right in my face, and and I'm thinking, I don't know what to do.
Doesn't have his gun.
Nightmare. I'm taking my gun license away from me.
Don't have a car.
So my only other response was, I actually put my hand on my hammer, thinking, all right, if I hit him, I reckon I've got like a good 10-minute start. Like, so I was about to swing with the hammer.
Wow.
And just
he was aggressive.
He was really aggressive.
Yeah, wow.
And just yelling. And I don't know, this may be a God moment, but I don't know what came over me, but I just sort of said to him, and I don't really fire up. I'm pretty laid back. And I just got up in his grill and just said, look, not once have I ever preached to you. Yeah. Not once have I told you about God. Not once have I told you about Jesus. Not once have I told you to change your lifestyle. But
because you've been working for this guy.
I've just been working for this guy, and I said, but I've had to sit here every Monday and listen to you preach to me about how many women that you scored on the weekend, how much alcohol you consumed, and how much drugs you took. So don't you start having a shot at me, and not once have I ever told you not to stop telling those stories.
Wow.
And he goes, "No, fair enough." And we were best mates.
That's amazing.
Wow. How to win friends and influence.
That is amazing. And then you were best mates.
Yeah. So, and he would ask me, he'd ask me a lot about faith and why I believe what I believe. And after so Monday he would preach to me, and then he'd let me preach to him. So he'd preach to me about the women, drugs, alcohol, and then I'd tell him about Jesus.
Oh my gosh, mate.
And then but most of the other guys, like pretty much the culture and scaffolding is during Smoko, they'd go down to the shop, they'd buy a pie and a magazine, a girl magazine.
What do you mean by that?
Like the pornography.
I'm joking.
Right. Like maybe I have to explain.
Porn magazine? Do you mean like one of those fashion magazines?
Yeah. So they'd always buy me a magazine, and and I'd sit there and just open up all the pages. So during work every day, just constantly having to endure that, and I never told them to stop. I never told them to. Don't do that or anything, which was quite confronting, having to look at porn every day and in a workplace, just because my boss had said give them hell, and whatever they would do, they would try and trip me up. They'd try and they'd offer me marijuana, they'd offer me all sorts of things, just to try and trip me up.
Yeah.
And then probably about 2 months into this, one of the top leading hands just had gone down to the shop, buy a magazine. He ended up buying me a fishing magazine, and he just threw it at me and just said, "I give in. We can't crack you."
Really?
And so then I just opened up the magazine. Oh, check this out. Look at all the fish, and so that was. Through that, just how I lived, how I, didn't preach at them, just loved them, just accepted them, got to hear their stories.
So was it more about you setting a practical example, or were there opportunities to share as well?
There wasn't. There was not a lot of thought gone into it, to be honest. Like I mean, if they'd ask, I'd certainly have a conversation if they'd asked about faith or why I believed what I believed. Yeah. But I never forced that conversation until until we had a guy at work who passed away, and all his family were in Victoria, and my boss, he was the only one up here, and my boss was trying to organise like funeral arrangements. Pretty dysfunctional family, so they weren't going to come up. And so my boss felt, well, we need to do something, and so he rang the family and said, not to worry, we'll sort everything out. It just so happens that in the goodness of his heart that he had hired a priest a couple of years ago, which was me. And so he's now telling, I hired this priest, and so he'll do the funeral.
Wow.
And
this is unbelievable.
Without asking you just said that?
No, without asking me.
So all of a sudden you're a scaffolder who's about to lead a funeral.
Yeah, to all the guys that I'd been working with. And so we get to the funeral, and they all turned up in their high-vis work gear, and I turned up in a suit, and they were all giving it to me about, why would you get dressed up? And I'm like, oh, it's a funeral. And so they didn't know I was going to lead the funeral, and I didn't know that they didn't know, and I just walked up the front.
Where was the funeral?
Up at Nambour.
Like in a church?
In a funeral home.
In a
funeral home. And so I walked up the front and did the funeral, and the guys were like, what do you, they couldn't believe it. And then we had the wake. We had a wake at one of the local RSLs.
Yeah.
And my boss got up on the bar and banged his glass and just said, right, it's been a pretty tough week, couple of weeks for us as a crew. If any of you need to talk to somebody, I've set a table up the back for Mike. And I didn't know this, so I just turned up to the wake, and he had set up a table
for you to pastor people.
And then he just said you had to. He said, so just go and have a chat to Mike. Just make sure you buy him a beer. And so I had a line of guys, 5 guys, just holding 2 schooners like this.
Oh my gosh!
Waiting for me to, and I'm just sitting there.
So you've gone from a few years back being your boss finding out that you're a Christian, almost firing you, and then texting everyone that you work with to give you hell about being a Christian.
Yeah.
From that
to now being the employed priest on the team.
Priest on the team and giving you an opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation.
Yeah.
That's stunning.
With every one of your work colleagues.
That's stunning.
Yeah. So And
what was the fallout from that, or what opportunity did you have there?
Yeah, I followed up a whole bunch of guys. Probably for a couple of months. Just got to listen to their stories about scaffolding is a pretty rough industry. A lot of the boys would. You'd pay them on a Friday and you wouldn't see them to Monday. The wives wouldn't see them. The kids wouldn't see them. They'd just gone out and had benders or whatever. So pretty loose to, now having conversations of how do I sort myself out? How do I, a couple of them came to church to some, just to check it out.
Wow.
Which was really cool.
Yeah.
But most of it was done. And even today would still have conversations with some of those guys, even though I don't work in that industry anymore.
Yeah, wow.
We still have, if a crisis happens, that's, I'm like the priest on dial.
Who's the guy who said, always preach the gospel and if necessary, use words? Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
St. Francis of Assisi.
Yeah.
It might be one of those ones that people attribute to him, but it wasn't really him.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, let's just say it was him.
And I've heard varying opinions about that because but people need to know. However, in the industry of scaffolding, for example, if you'd have even mentioned one word about faith, you'd have been torn to bits.
Torn to shreds.
And
probably wouldn't have had the position
and
to
probably
stay on.
would have been fired.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have been a good move to use words. I love the part of the story about him just throwing the fishing magazine about you. I can't crack you. I've bought you a porn magazine every day for however long, and they just couldn't crack you. And so eventually you just, I give up. I'm going to throw fishing. And, and what you did, you didn't say, this is wrong. They're probably trafficked women. This will be bad for your marriage. No. You just, by your fruit, they'll know you. Just by the way that you conducted yourself at work, preach the gospel louder than anyone could in that position.
Yeah. And it sounds like you weren't just doing it by example. It's like when it came up, because they, in that environment, is like you were saying, like and I love your perspective on this, is like if you would just come in and be like, right, they know I'm a Christian now, I'm going to take every opportunity I can to share or point out things or whatever. It's just like, it didn't sound like that was really an option in that culture, but by winning them over with, your actions and like that as an example, like can't crack you. Do you think that paved the opportunity then for smaller conversations, which then in the context of your boss probably actually led to that bigger moment of him being like, hey, Mike's really trustworthy. Yeah. He was there when we needed him. Wow, and he'll be there for you if you need him.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it went even beyond that too, like now that everyone knew that I was the priest or whatever, it didn't sort of give me any license to continue to necessarily preach to them,
right.
But it certainly increased the opportunity of them coming to me to ask questions
Knowing that you
of
were
faith and trusted. I ended up, so in that I got promoted in that job. I ended up managing the whole scaffold company. So I've gone from the guy that was about to lose his job at the end of the week to now managing the scaffold company.
And being given a platform to pastor people.
To do that,
in an RSL. Wow.
And which was good when I was in that space. A few of the guys at the church we went to would beg me for jobs. And I was always, nah, I'm not employing anyone from church. Like I just didn't want to, I guess, all the work that I'd put in over a couple of years just to be full, like because someone says something stupid or like they want to preach at them or now that but this one guy, Kieran, he'd pestered me for a job and so I finally give him a job and he was just a local this lad in the youth group. And I'd like what my boss did to me. I'd ring up every leading hand that he was on, like how did he work, how did he go, and they're like, oh no, he's good. And then from that, Kieran got another guy from youth to work, and so my boss actually discovered that the church was a great employment agency with all these youth because he said that he didn't have to. They turned up to work on time.
Yeah.
They weren't stopping to have cigarette breaks all the time. They would work back if they needed to. There was no. He said, I'm not having to try and find them on the weekends because I know that they'll be in church.
Oh my God.
So I know where they are.
So beautiful.
Whereas I don't have wives and girlfriends calling me to find out. Where and he thought that the church became the greatest employment agency that he'd ever stumbled across. And so then from that, there was a period of time when we worked there. There was probably about 6 or 8 guys, all from the church.
Wow.
And so it completely changed the.
Did that change the culture of the place?
Yeah.
Wow.
Even the time the boss would say this is a different place.
Wow.
The guy that almost fired you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he mellowed, like he would have conversations about God. He would he really opened up and we became really, good friends and trusted friends, like in that sense, which was nice.
Man.
So it really did, just through a little bit of evangelism in that sense of just being who you are or who. And I probably found that I like that style of Christianity in that sense because if I go back to the earlier stories of looking at Jesus thinking he could be my girlfriend if he didn't have the bed, and not relating or not finding out how that relates, but actually that was a moment for me that I realised I could be Jesus anywhere, in that sense, not Jesus, but but I could. In a scaffold place where, or
it's a messy, relatable Jesus.
Messy, relatable, into the sharing shed or whatever it was. Yeah. And that was quite definitive for me when it came to sharing faith, talking about God, that I actually, I don't have to talk about this image that's blonde-haired, blue-eyed, that doesn't relate. Actually, Jesus does relate and relates to everybody where they're at, whether it's a scaffold yard, sharing shed or whatever. And sharing faith wasn't as hard as I actually thought it would be. You just be yourself.
Yeah, just be yourself.
Oh, man, because I feel like this could be so – I hope this has been encouraging if you're listening, but just can we just sort of pick apart – this concept a little bit of, okay, we put out a question recently, which is like, what are your biggest objections when sharing your faith? Or like, what are the walls to doing it? And I think about your story and hitting a point where, your boss finds out you're a Christian, texts everyone in the company and says, give him hell. Like that's a pretty decent objection or resistance point to you sharing your faith. And that is a picture of like, I guess, that could be applied to how we feel as Christians in society, maybe like in culture now, just like, it's not that cool to be a Christian. It's, people I think in our audience are in that scenario where it's just like, I cannot talk about my faith at work. Not just being ridiculed, but actually just losing my job. Like, it's really practical as well. Yeah. Taking yourself back to those initial days and weeks of just like, what am I meant to do? You didn't give up on sharing your faith, but you had to be really careful and navigate it. Is there any sort of learnings or like how would you encourage someone to approach that kind of a scenario?
For me, literally every day, like I didn't enjoy my job. I didn't enjoy the persecution. I don't even think it was probably that much persecution, but like in the context, but, compared to what others have to go through to share faith, it was pretty limited. But I just remember every day just praying a simple prayer. God, I know I go to work for a natural boss, but ultimately today I go to work for you, that you're my boss. And so whatever I do today, I do unto you. And that was all I prayed every day before I stepped out of my car, just bowed my head and did that. And I think that was a real help because even when, the guys are showing me pornography or, yelling at me or just being crass, whatever it was, that was just a great framework for me to go, you know what, that today I'm going to work for the Lord, and God, you've got me here in this place for a reason. And right now, I don't know what that reason is other than to bring a paycheck home. Yeah. That's how I felt. Yeah.
But were you looking for like opportunities? No.
I wasn't looking.
Or sensitive to them when they came up?
I'd always, when we were at Bible college, I didn't love evangelism.
Yeah.
Like that, because at Bible college I had to go around and door knock, and
that was part of
and that made me a team leader. And I actually would send them out and I'd go and hide in a park. And then just get the report and tell the lecturers that this was our evangelism class, this is what we did, what we do today. And I'd make up stories at Bible college about people I'd talk to.
Oh, wow,
because I was so afraid of evangelism and speaking to people.
Yeah.
So in some ways, it's almost like God threw me into this. I don't know.
But what was evangelism to you? Like, so what, you're at Bible college and they're like, this week we're door knocking.
Yeah.
What was the thing in your head that made you hide in a park? And like the thing that you were like, I can't do this. Like, what did you see it being? Or
I think part of growing up, school, like asked to leave school, I'm dumb, I stutter, I'm not confident, I won't have the right things to say, someone will trap me, all that type of thing. So I was afraid. Like I just didn't want to be. I'm happy to do one-on-one, but don't, and we have a conversation, but it's got to be organic. It's just got to be not to knock on a door and, hey, do you want to know about Jesus? So for me, incredibly fearful. I was really shy, introvert.
Yeah.
So I didn't. I just could not see how this. And I actually used to admire the Jehovah's Witnesses because they could do that.
Yeah.
And didn't I obviously necessarily agree with their faith, but like I did hold them in awe a little bit of, wow, that's courage. They actually believe what I don't. And so I was even in my own faith just wrestling with man, I'm not even a really good Christian. I can't share about God, or I can't share about I'm at Bible college and I don't even like it. I don't even know why I'm here, other than my wife's filled out a form one day because I said something stupid like I'll go to Bible college.
Because it's interesting, a couple of weeks ago we spoke to Bryce, who is that guy, young American, goes out on the street,
very proactive,
and as is Mike, but just proactive in a different way, right?
Yeah.
Because like he would randomly, and he literally films himself going up to strangers, telling them about Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, cool. You are as bold, I believe, and as strategic, just in a way that God's wired you. Like we've been, like the whole thread of this last season has been, God is at work and he's after the unsaved. And sometimes he's like, you, Tim, you, Mike, would be perfect for this person right here. Yeah. Because you send Bryce to a scaffolding yard, they're going to throw him off the building. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. But send Mike, job done.
Yeah.
And there were threats, like I've been through.
Well, you had your hand on a hammer. Do you know what I mean?
There were definitely threats of, all sorts of stuff. And again, like I admire those people, to do that. But I think I like what you said. You're just wired a certain way. Yeah. And finding that in how you're wired and how God uses that. We don't all have to be the same, in that sense to reach people.
I feel like it's easy to look at your story, and this is with anyone's story in retrospect. It's like, had a good ending. You had that moment in the pub where, you had a line of guys, ready to talk. But it was obviously like a big journey and a really tough journey. I think sometimes, and this is for me as well, we look at, I can't be Bryce and go out on the street. I can't have this big, like a big moment of having to convert someone in one conversation. Yeah. Just seems overwhelming and too hard to achieve. But again, like a thread that's come through our conversations recently has been, I don't know how I'd describe it, like the leverage of tiny moments. Yeah. And that's cool. And whether in ways, I mean, you've probably had the blessing of seeing the accumulation of tiny moments over years in this scaffolding story. But I think in so many scenarios we don't see, if we, like that guy who had a word for you, it's like
he doesn't know.
Didn't see him before, haven't seen him since. Yeah. But it's just like, and so that in the context of evangelism, it's like your story, Mark, in the supermarket with the girl in the green hair. It's just like, that's one tiny moment. And I think we downplay the value of that.
I love the tiny moments thing. That's great.
Yeah. And even the fact that of particular people for particular assignments. Like that crew, again, in retrospect, it's really easy to see that was your assignment. On day 1 and 2, not so much. But it's just like, and so I don't know, what do we take from that? It's kind of like you just got to be yourself and trust that God's at work in this bigger picture, even if you're sort of having a really hard time. Because if you'd thrown in the towel with that crew, it's just
how dare you? I'm going to the ombudsman and I'm going to report you for workplace bullying versus I'm going to work harder than any one of your people.
Yeah, right.
And preach the gospel with the way that I live.
Yeah.
Like I love the tiny moments thing, mate. I think that's great because, like, I love that you don't know the guy's name that prophesied and spoke life in what you were going to do, how you were going to live your life. And of course, this isn't a job that you do now; it's a vocation. It's who you are. Yeah. It's wrapped up in your assignment as a Christ follower. And we don't know his name, but we know, but because of that word, people now know the name of Jesus that maybe wouldn't. And I remember someone saying to me years ago, can you imagine what we could do if no one needed to take any credit or make any money from it?
Wow.
And what and 100 years from now, people would talk about that move of God that happened with a certain group of people. I can't remember who it was. I can't remember what church it was, but this amount of people got saved, and now all in the name know the name of Jesus. Because that's where we get tripped up, isn't it? With all the famous pastors and all the mega churches and all that kind of stuff. Have you read this book by this famous guy? Yeah. That doesn't work. It works for a time. Yeah. But those people either end up failing or...
We're just not that person.
No.
And we don't all have to be a famous preacher. And we don't, you look at the life of Jesus and it was like, I'm reading it through with my son at the moment. The amount of times he's like, don't tell anyone, don't tell anyone, don't tell anyone. Yeah. And it's just like, he was just all about the tiny moments.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess it now rolls over into what I do is like I'm in full-time ministry. Yeah. In that sense of working for the church. But I've still got to be me, in that sense of and I think God has done some amazing things in my life, like with after leaving the scaffold yard, going into ministry, I had an opportunity to do a master's degree, and so I'm the dumb kid.
You're the dumb kid with a master's
now, and so I just happened to be doing it through COVID, and I really just ended up writing a thesis, and one of my theses is on the Great Commission, go make disciples. And it just happened to be during COVID, so it was quite interesting, So I'll give you the title was of my thesis was fulfilling the imperative of the Great Commission during a global pandemic. In other words, how to be a Christian and not suck during COVID. Yeah, that's probably the title of it. But
and you're probably the only one who's written that.
Yeah.
Or one of a few.
But a lot of that also came out from the scaffold yard. A lot of that came from, the sharing shed or like just seeing how do I yes, I'm in full-time ministry, but actually I sometimes think I was more successful as in evangelism when I actually wasn't working in the four walls of the church. I was actually, sharing my faith and different things like that. And so I sort of tried to write a bit about that. In that sense to, how do we do that that we're all able ministers of the Spirit rather than just for the professional one that stands on a stage. Yeah. And I think too, it's really been something that I'm conscious of in the sense that even with church, like I feel like sometimes we've often talk about now bring your friend to church or bring someone, and then the professional guy will speak and then we'll get them saved. Yeah. And I've sort of really battled with that idea in the church world, and maybe some of the larger churches where we've got the lights, we've got the attractional, we've got the professional speaker who's eloquent, who can say all the right things, and we'll get them saved. But I feel like for me, my role is, so how do I get you to share your faith in your workplace?
Yeah.
And to me, I think the greatest missionary force that the church has got in our day is not necessarily those that we send overseas like we used to. My grandparents were missionaries, and that was a big move. But it's actually those who go to work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's the greatest missionary force that the church has got.
Yeah.
So what am I doing as a pastor now to equip them to go and fulfill the Great Commission,
awesome.
whether it be at a university, in a school, in a workplace. And so that's probably my biggest motivation now, and seeing that. Seeing that achieved.
There's a book called Canoeing in the Mountains that talks about the fact that the moment that we find ourselves in, he talks about the context is in the 1800s, two explorers were tasked to go and find a commerce route, and they were professional canoeists and all that kind of stuff. But the maps showed that there was a waterway, but then suddenly they hit the Rocky Mountains. This is the 1800s. They didn't know they were there. And all of a sudden they have to ditch their canoes and learn how to ride horses and speak to the locals and all that kind of stuff. And he was saying the context is, in our day, we used to send missionaries overseas to go and do their thing, but we now live in a post-Christian world, which means our mission field is here. Like, it's here, it's at work, right? Yeah. And so like that, and you know, if we don't feel like we're being much used to the kingdom, like be nice to your neighbor, like do what Mike's done on the, you know, at the top of a high-rise building, like refuse to look at porn magazines and encourage them, and don't hit them over the head with a hammer if they threaten you. You know what I mean? I just love that. I just think it's great.
Yeah.
Oh, Mike, it's been awesome talking today. We have to wrap up for this, but I'm feeling...
I love that.
I reckon there's a part two, to be honest. I would, because I'd love to... There's just that whole, like, how do we share the gospel as everyday people that I feel like you would just have so much to speak into.
That's what I feel like,
Yeah, we might have to get you back on the microphone. Mike back on the mic. Thank you so much for the chat today. It's so awesome to hear your story. And for everyone listening, I hope that's been super inspiring. Yeah. And but just to hear, I think your authenticity come through, and your love for Jesus, and just being on like a sort of unexpected adventure almost, which we all are in so many ways. So hope that's been encouraging for you guys if you've been listening today. And like we always say, we're not building channels, we're building a movement. So like and subscribe, and jump into the comments, tell us what you thought of the episode, and we'll see you again next week.
Brilliant.
So good, mate. I love that. Love that. That was so good.
I don't know where to stop
so far. Like, I just like